Welcome to On a Grand Scale podcast. This is where real conversations about what it takes to scale meaningful work happen. My name is Nyoni and I'm the founder of Grand Scale. At Grand Scale, we help founder-led organizations to build systems that let them grow beyond the founder. What we have learned is that missions rarely delay from lack of passion or lack of funding. They do so because the systems haven't caught up with the vision that the founder has. So this podcast is about the real mechanics of growth. It's about people, about strategy, execution, cash, and the hard decisions behind it all. And today we have a guest who is going to lead us right into the money, particularly when we talk about sales. He is the CEO of Anyani Tako Enterprises. He's a life coach, a business mentor, media specialist, consultant, author, and international speaker. Over 20 years of experience in sales leadership is what he has. He is into business development and strategic partnerships across Africa. He has held senior leadership roles with global organizations including SAP, IBM, Oracle, Pearson, and PeopleCert. He has successfully built business partnerships and driven commercial growth in more than 15 countries in Africa. He's very passionate about building high-performance sales teams through leadership, behavioral psychology, and relationship-driven selling. He is a thought leader on the future of sales, combining AI innovation with authentic human connection. He's the author of a forthcoming book called Sales with a Human Touch. He's dedicated to equipping leaders, entrepreneurs, sales professionals with practical strategies to achieve sustainable growth and lasting impact. His name is Romeo Mabasa. Romeo, welcome to On a Grand Scale podcast.
It's always good to listen to someone giving you your flowers when you are still alive. So I'm breathing, you can see, breathing very, very, very well. So thank you so much for such an amazing introduction. I really appreciate it.
Fantastic. Flowers well deserved. And it's an honor to have you on this podcast.
Yeah, no, I take the honor of being invited. You know how you get invited and then you don't scream and then oh, really? Oh, thank you. I'd love to come. The minute when you turn a corner, yes.
Yeah. Oh, man. Okay. Romeo, please, let's talk about this subject, sales. What got you to specialize in it? I mean, many people are super afraid of it, including entrepreneurs, and many people in professional settings alike. Sales is just the thing that people want to run away from. What got you into it?
I think maybe I can take you back to where I grew up. I grew up in the church. And one of the most powerful things that a lot of people ignore is how church actually is the first point of us experiencing master classes. Because when you MC a church, you take offering, they ask you to come and preach and you are scared. And, most of us started preaching when we were very, very young, or, to say something, standing in front of, 50, 100 people. And if you record that, you realize that, you started talking to people at an early age. And this is where, the love for people started. And the love of people leads to one becoming, a salesperson because you get to talk to people all the time.
Right. Are you were you an elder's child or a pastor's child? What's the story there?
I'm actually a PK. My father is a bishop.
You are a PK.
And, so I'm a PK. So I think the benefit of being a PK, you always are in the forefront, doing something. And I always like to say to all of us that never, ever, despise your humble beginnings, because most of us are because of where we grew up, especially the good parts of our childhood.
Right. No, we share that background. I'm also a PK. So we have a good place to start the conversations here.
Yeah, so, no, that's very true. Yeah.
All right. So you've got more than 20 years in sales.
Yeah.
Um, Many people talk about sales and rejection.
Yeah.
How has your relationship with sales and with rejection developed over the 20 years that you've been selling?
So I think you look at the cycles of the 20 years.
Mm,
20 years ago, getting a meeting was very quick. You call someone, you are in a meeting tomorrow. You
mm,
call someone, or you email someone and they respond very quickly. And you get to understand that back then, 20 years ago, decisions were made by one person. Decisions were just took two approvals. Decisions were mostly made by IT teams. If you speak to the IT manager, then, and they like what you're selling, they would just make the decision because they're sitting with the budget. But then you look at how that has evolved. Organizations are getting cleverer. Now you are sitting with three or four committees before a decision is made because of what we call fit to market. And fit to
mm,
market is organizations need to sit down now and hold themselves accountable to saying if we are going to spend this much money on this product, we need to make sure that it meets the following criteria. So that's why you find that
mm,
today when you ask for a meeting, likelihood of you meeting one person is very, very low. You're going to meet more people, but then your homework, and I'll get to the rejection part, your homework is
mm,
to make sure you study the people you are going to meet because you
mm,
get into a meeting and you know nothing about the company you are meeting, you know nothing about the people you are meeting. And when I say people you are meeting, the first place to start is LinkedIn. Go look up people's profiles on LinkedIn so that you understand where each team member is sitting and the importance of that. And you have to prepare 2 3 days before that meeting because what you are going to do is then adapt your product capability according to each profile. For example, if you are meeting the CEO, what do you think is on the CEO's agenda? If you are meeting the CFO, obviously the CFO is trying to save costs. The CEO is trying to move the organization to the next level. If you are
mm,
meeting the chief digital officer, they are trying to get the organization to go digital. So, how is your product speaking to all their touch points? And the rejection comes where, for example, most of us have seen this. You get a meeting the first time, and then after that, they completely ignore you. Then you know that you've actually messed up. You know, uh,
mm,
um,
mm,
you get a meeting, and maybe perhaps you didn't mess up, but the chances are you didn't speak to everybody's critical points in
mm,
what your product can do, and that's where the rejection starts.
mm, mm. So how have you dealt with it?
So
Is it the preparation that you're talking about, making sure that at each point you're doing it more and more? But how do you overcome the emotional hindrance that
yeah,
holds many entrepreneurs back from actually
yeah.
going out and making sales happen?
So, as I said, 20 years ago, it was easy. You meet one person, and I happen to be a likable guy. Get into a meeting, cracking a joke, and people are laughing. That's what we call rapport. You must always create rapport. As a salesperson, don't get in all tensed up and you want to start talking about the business. That would also throw you off because you are already nervous. So, to kill the nervousness, you do what we call you do a rapport. In a rapport you can talk about the soccer, you talk about the World Cup now, you talk about the relevant things that are happening at the time, you talk about the events of the weekend, so that you can kind of like gauge who is a fan of whatever, if it's soccer, if it's cricket, if it's then you can kind of like break the ice like that. But don't get into a meeting, you meet people and you just get in and start talking. You might also disadvantage yourself. So in terms of the importance of that is to understand that 20 years ago, it was easy. One person, they like you, they buy. Today, you are going to meet, and also one meeting closes the sale, or at most two. But two today, you're probably going to have like 6 or 7 meetings because every meeting, must get an approval to the next level, approval to the
Right.
next, and this is where the
Right.
committees are sitting in the different, and one of the things that people ignore is cybersecurity teams, because the
Mm,
cybersecurity teams are sitting there trying to protect the organization, and your product is not speaking to cybersecurity. and you find that they throw you out because of that. So it's very important for you to understand what are the typical touch points before a decision is made. And sometimes there's what we call CAM, and CAM is your key account management. And part of key account management is where you do your homework about that particular organizations. Who are they? How many employees do they have? And you probably go through their website thoroughly. Go through their website, and also you can use AI to actually say, can you go through this website? And I'm going to meet this. I'm going to meet this team, and give me the critical points that would probably speak to my product. AI can help you with that. But remember, I always say AI carries two important, sort of decisions. The first one is, do you use AI to completely do everything for you? We call this cognitive offloading. And cognitive offloading is, I don't want to think, AI do everything for me, or what we call cognitive augmentation, where you're saying, I'm going to do the work, and then I'll ask AI to check if I covered everything. So this is where responsible AI comes in. But the most important thing is, today, with all the tools that you have, you cannot go into a meeting and meet people you know nothing about. You don't understand what their company does. You don't understand where they're trying to go. And this is where you will get thrown out, unfortunately.
Mm, mm, mm. That's loaded.
Yeah,
So I just want to ask something. So you are mostly into B2B sales, right? You
across
are.
the board.
Right. What is the major difference between, selling to individual customers and
Yeah,
selling to businesses? And what approaches does one need to change or take when going to the other? And I'm talking about that because there are people who listen onto this podcast who have, usually some have retail that they sell to thousands of customers at a point. And then there are some who, if they get 3 or 4 customers a year, they are good for the year because that covers all they need to cover
yeah,
for that year. So
yeah.
what makes the difference between the two?
So B2B is more organized, because you are probably selling to organizations that are probably working with other similar providers like yourself. So it's
Mm,
easier to just come and plug in, and obviously you give them marketing, you give them training, product training, and then also you can help them uncover how your product, again, fit to market, how your product speaks to how they can make more money for themselves, because that's the reason
right.
why they onboard your services. And then
Sure.
the B2C, it's really working with, either, if you have money, you can work with agencies that will probably profile the different individuals. That is, if you really want to scale very fast. You can
Right.
start building from yourself, for yourself. For example, you can use your own social media, and just throw a survey and saying, hey, are you an individual with this following qualification, and you want to get that qualification? Or are you this individual, are you a small SME trying to scale? Share your details, then you and I will get in touch. And that's how you start building a database of like-minded individuals. And then, obviously, with B2C, you have to show them something of value. Either host a webinar where they can see your capability. For example, in my sales book, I've created a model called RARE, RARE. And what
Mm-hmm.
RARE stands for is, people will always listen to someone they recognize, they see the value. So that's what the first R stands for. So
Right.
what will people see by listening to you, or what will they gain? So that's the recognition of your experience, the recognition of your skills, the recognition of your expertise. People must recognize that. And then the A is, people must actually they must actually accept and appreciate the fact that you know what you're talking about. And how do you see this? They'll start asking questions. They'll start kind of like saying, because you're making them think in different ways. And the other R, it's important that they respect your craft. They need to respect what you do, because if they kind of like feel, this guy's wasting our time, they'll probably switch off. So they have to respect that you know what you're talking about. And then the last E is embedded. And then embedded, that's the rare. Embedded is, then you see that people want your advice before they buy. then you know that there is so much value in what you are offering. So when you are dealing with individuals, in one of the sales training I did actually was understanding the LSM that you speak to. LSM is your living standard measure, and
Mhm.
if you are speaking to level 7 to 10, you are talking to educated individuals. So you're offering your execution, the way you deliver has to be on point. Otherwise, they lose interest. So B2B is really good for scaling big and fast, and then B2C is really saying, hey, I need to keep my lights on. Let me not ignore the individuals, because if I can get 10 sales per day, it will help me keep the office. It will help me pay rent. So it's really just seeing how you are growing as a business, pretty much.
Okay. Okay. Um, why do you think sales is important for any business and any founder that's running a business? Why do you think why do you think the sales function is important, and how can a serious founder ensure that they set it upright for themselves?
Yeah. So look, sales is the heartbeat of any business.
Mm,
Without sales, the business is going to die.
mm,
Unfortunately, you
mm,
are going to close shop. So it's important to understand that sales will keep the organization motivated to create products and services. Sales also becomes customer facing, which is the function that will then add to product development teams, to marketing teams, to social responsibility. So sales teams are very important to keep the organization talking to its customers. Without sales, organizations will just keep developing what they think is the best thing, and then sales can come and saying, after talking to customers, they actually don't like it. Then you can pivot right away. So sales is by far the reason why organizations exist.
mm,
And without sales, literally, people will be out of jobs. And
mm,
let me tell you this: the reason why there is layoffs, the reason why there is people, getting, losing their jobs, is because sales is suffering most of the time. So it's very important to understand that sales becomes the beacon, and becomes the lighthouse as to why the organization exists. But the most
mm,
important thing is organizations need to invest in sales financially, resource wise, and make sure you bring in really, really good salespeople, and make sure that you empower them. Make sure that every quarter they go through product training. Every quarter they also get incentivized for bringing in customer data, because then that's how the organization knows what to build next. Without sales, you will just build and hope for the best. But with sales, you will build because customers need the particular product that you are building. So sales is kind of like a funnel that helps an organization know what's happening in the market, what's happening in the industry, what customers are thinking about. Especially when you bring in experienced salespeople who know how to ask the right questions, who know how to engage customers beyond product level, but capability, understanding where they are trying to go, understanding why they are buying the product they are buying, understand what this product can do, and then feedback to the business. And that's how the next version of the product comes out, because the organization is well informed because of the sales function.
I had never looked at sales in that way.
Yeah,
The first part of what you said, definitely, I've looked at sales in that way. That is the engine. Without the money coming in, there's no way that you are making money, and this is
yeah,
why many companies close. But the fact that sales is the customer facing function that
yeah.
helps you with product development, service
You
development,
essentially get the opportunity to know what your customer is thinking.
right,
It helps you to be obsessed with
right.
where the customer is going, and
Right.
it sales removes the blindness for the organization, because you cannot run your business blind.
Mm,
You can't. You so you
mm,
need sales. Sales is the eyes to help you know what to build.
Come on now.
And more importantly, to know
That's a
how to
mic
scale.
drop right there.
For you to know how to scale,
Right.
you need sales.
So sales needs to be informing you. It needs to, because you said something there about you will end up creating things that you think the customers need and not
Big mistake.
creating what they really want.
What they really want, yes.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why sales cannot be you cannot treat sales as a performance, where
Right.
you say if a salesperson is not performing, then I'm gonna fire them. But you don't
Right.
realize that they actually are sitting with a critical customer information that can help you build
Mm,
better products. So you get rid
mm,
of this salesperson because you're not treating salespeople as holistic. You treat them as a financial part only. So what you need to understand is that
mm,
sales carries a number of domains within the business. They can
mm,
feedback product functionality. They can
mhm,
feedback to marketing to build better campaigns. They can
mhm,
feed to legal in order for anyone not to sue you, because
mhm,
they would say, another person is busy, mimicking our product. Then
mm.
this is when legal will act. So
Mm.
sales cuts across the entire organization. The same.
Absolutely.
Sales can also help the front line, because, for example, one of the biggest mistakes, and I'm glad I'm on camera. One of
Mm,
the most unanswered email is info at. It's one of the most unanswered email with a lot of organizations. So sales
mm,
can actually be able to pick that up, because if a salesperson meets a customer for the first time and the customer
mm,
says, because I didn't know anyone in your organization, I'd send an email
mm,
to info at, and
mm.
nobody has
No
responded.
one responded.
Sales will go and saying we need to start making sure we monitor this mailbox. Number two,
Mm,
to make sure that the front line knows how to respond to a customer. Because what happens is, the front line will just say, hi, this is Romeo from Anyani Tako. How can I help you? And then the customer
mm,
is not articulating, explaining what they need. And I've seen this a lot. And then
mm,
the front line just says, okay, hold on. And they send them to marketing. And then marketing say, so sales will help the organization to make sure that everybody is trained to understand
mm,
that
mm,
when a potential customer calls, they must be
mm.
routed to the right individual.
Right. Right.
Yes,
That is so rich. And
that's
then you
pretty much
said
what sales is. Yeah,
you spoke about investing resource wise, as well as in people that are able to sell, experienced salespeople, and also putting money into sales.
yeah.
Here is many entrepreneurs usually sit with. Should I make more money, and then once I make more money, I can get experienced salespeople to come into my business? Or should I get experienced salespeople so that I can make more money? That's the one. And then the second one, that is a big challenge, is let me get a less experienced person who I
Mm.
can teach. Maybe because as the founder, I've sold, and many founders are into selling because that's how the business survives.
Yeah, yeah.
But they get much less expensive people, but who are less
Yeah.
experienced to come
Less
into the
experience. Yeah,
business, and then as time goes, we kind of develop the function. What
yeah.
is your take around this thinking and this approach to building a sales team?
I would say, to the best of your ability as an entrepreneur, bring in experienced salespeople. But
Right.
then what you can do is, number one, you can actually give them, the piece of the business, like that 1% to saying, come in, develop the business. Option number one, I can give you a percentage, when the business grows.
Mm-hmm.
But then I don't pay you. I'll only pay you commission of what you bring in. So
Mm-hmm.
you can actually do that, because what you want to scale as soon as possible, especially if you feel the product is strong enough. You need to scale as soon as possible, because uh, lo and behold, you might actually avalanche and you don't have structures. Then you are
Mm-hmm.
plummet anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs who start small, thinking my business will grow maybe in 2 years. 6 months later, they are booming, and then they don't have proper structures, and then they kind of like get absorbed anyway. So and then the second part is you actually can outsource the sales function, because sometimes there are organizations that they would actually sell for you because they already have a market. That's another option. And then the third option is you can actually approach the seaters, the seaters, and you're saying, hey, look, I want to bring in young university students to come and sell for me, and and then the seaters can actually, I think in some cases they can give them a stipend, so you don't have to pay for that function. So you just need to make sure that you're talking to the correct SETA, which is your Sector Education Training Authority in South Africa. So because remember, the country is looking to entrepreneurs to create jobs for young people, and the
Right.
country has budgets to actually help in that regard. So I always say to entrepreneurs, don't start small and think the business won't go big. What if it goes big before you expected it, and you don't have proper functions? Then you start missing invoices, and you start not responding on time, and then you're going to lose those customers anyway. So you can trade off and bring in experienced salespeople and saying, maybe I'll cover your petty cash, I'll cover your petrol, I'll cover your airtime because you need to call, but I'm not going to pay you. I'll only pay you when you bring in business. And a lot of salespeople, especially if they really believe in the product, they can actually do it. Yeah, they can actually do it. And then the third point is what we call the threat of a new entrant. And the threat of a new entrant is when you think you're going to start alone, what you don't realize, as long as you go public, there is someone watching you, and then they might
Right.
actually steal your model, and then and they make it better, and then they scale faster than you. So that's why you must always scale as fast as you can as soon as possible. Don't just say I'm 1%, I'm going to start small. It's 2026, so it's important for us to move faster as soon as possible.
Mm, mm, mm.
Someone is looking at you. You'll be surprised. Someone is looking at what you're selling. They see it's working, and then some of them will even ask for a meeting to say, "Hey, you inspire me. Tell me how do you do it." And then they steal your IP, and they just go change the name, refine it, make
Right.
it 10 times better, and
Right.
then they
Right.
pass you. They pass you with
Mm,
a broken car on the road with a Ferrari.
mm.
Yes,
A
that's
Ferrari
what
with your own idea.
with your own idea. Yes, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then, say I've decided now to kind of build a team of salespeople.
Yeah.
How do I get to build that team, and what are the decisions? What are the things that I need to take note of when building
Yeah.
a sales team?
Yeah, good question. So, in my training, I always start with what we call uh, Exodus 31. It talks about the life of Bezalel,
Mm-hmm.
and Bezalel was a master craftsman, and
Mm-hmm.
then Bezalel is associated with four C's. And please write these four C's down, and you also can put it on your captions. The four C's. The first C is calling.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know that the salesperson you are bringing has a calling and a passion for sales? Or are you bringing someone who's hungry, they'll do anything? So
Mm-hmm.
at least you need to find people who have a calling, and they look at your product, and then the calling ignites. That's the first. And then the
Mm-hmm.
second C, what makes you think they have the character to support your business? Because one of the challenging things I've seen is you bring in really good salespeople, but then they are sloppy, they are lazy, they don't have good character, they don't speak to customers very well, and obviously that is going to cost you a sale. So the second C is how do you need to test character actually. You need to test that this person, because remember, as an entrepreneur, it took you some time to get where you are. You know, blood, sweat, and tears. And then here is this salesperson comes. They happen to be a good salesperson, but they don't have character, and your customers are complaining. about their demeanor, complaining about them being late. They are complaining about their foul language. They are complaining about, So it's important to test. The first one is make sure this person, once they've seen the product, they feel compelled and like, wow, I believe in the product. I think I have a calling to sell this thing. And then the second one is character, and then the third one is competence. And competence
Wait,
is
before you get to competence, on calling, what are some of the calling indicators?
The calling indicators would be it's how someone receives the training, or when you do your interviews, you'll pick up that this person actually knows and they understand me. Those are the what we call the levers of wisdom. Because wisdom kind of like marries each other. When you meet someone that inspires you, the way they talk, the way they respond, the way you ask them in an interview. Those are the indicators. You ask them, okay, fine. Did you go through my website to understand the product? They did. And then they're already in the interview, they're already sharing ideas of how they think you should be closing. So that's where the calling comes in. You can see that this person is hungry, with the right dose of, passion, and not only coming to grab your money and run pretty much. So those are some of the indicators that are there. It's like someone who actually kind of like finishes your sentences. As you say this, they say, oh yes,
Right.
I think we can try this, we can try that.
Right.
And more importantly, they keep saying, I did this in my past and it worked. So this is what we call scenario-based interviews. And scenario-based interviews is, don't just saying, can you do this? Chances are a human being is going to say, yes, I have. Have you gone there? Yes, I have. So you kind of like want to say, give me a scenario where, you were dealing with a difficult customer, and how did you convince them to buy anyway. So it has to be scenario based type. Then there you'll actually pick up if someone's got a calling for what you are trying to build. Okay.
Right.
Yeah, and then as I said, then it's the character to make sure that it matches the calling. Otherwise, you'll find that someone has a they're actually not a nice person. In some cases, they're rude. They don't speak well about the product, and or they go and disrespect your customers because they just don't have the demeanor and the character that speaks to where you are trying to go. And then the competence is obviously it's very important. This person wants to learn more and more about the product, and they're teaching themselves sales, they're teaching the industry sell in, they're asking the right questions, and they're asking you, what else should I be doing, in order for me to grow, the business. And then the final one, contribution. And contribution is someone understanding exactly why they are here and what is expected of them. What you don't want as a sales manager or a sales director is to constantly remind someone why they are here, and then every time you remind them, they act surprised, or they say they didn't know, and it's been 12 months. They don't seem to understand their contribution. They don't seem to understand, that sales has a pipeline, numbers have to be closed, business, they have to bring in business, and you see when someone doesn't understand their contribution as someone who, you ask, last week you said you were talking to customer X. What happened? They say, I emailed them, they didn't answer. I called them, they didn't answer. I don't know what to do. Then you know that there's no passion for sales. I'm the type of a sales guy who I email, you don't answer. I call, you don't answer. Then next week I show up at your office. Because I will always say, if the door is closed, try the chimney. If the chimney is closed, is blocked, get it through the window. Whatever happens, especially if you believe that customer carries the potential you need to get to them. Yeah, you need to. Yeah, also try LinkedIn, connect with them on LinkedIn. Most of us have social media accounts. Try and follow them on their account and comment until they give you attention. Either way, for a salesperson, or for an entrepreneur, excuses must cease. No more excuses. We need to get things done.
Wow. And all this is in the book.
Yes, it is. It is in the book. Yeah.
Yes. When is it coming out?
I'm just currently working on. It's completed. I'm working on a delivery platform because we can't print physical copies anymore. So it's really just So I'm kind of like testing a number of delivery platforms, so that the book automatically has audio, so that you can. Excuse me. so that you can actually listen to it as you drive and as you chill. Yeah, so that's what,
Fantastic.
yeah.
Can't wait to get a copy either on these digital platforms or an actual physical copy. Sales with a human touch, huh?
Yeah, it sells with a human touch. And another one that I'll also publish is modern sales, working in a group. Because what I find now is that if you are working in isolation, you're working in silos, you don't get a lot done. But sales teams that always mesh up, sales team that come together, there's rock ups on Fridays before you go home. You sit and saying, what did you learn this week? What challenges are you seeing? You scrum the sales. It's called a sales scrum, where you sit down and say, let's learn from one another. Let's create a non-threatening environment in order for us to make sure that, I don't fail alone. The team says, come, we will carry you. You're struggling, it's okay, because
Right.
the reason why salespeople hate meetings, they hate sales meetings because it's like they don't think there's anything to celebrate. But maybe you didn't close the deal, but
Because.
surely you learn something about the customer, and that's what you need.
Mm,
That's what you need to be sharing with the business. To saying, I didn't close that deal, but I realized that there's a new regulation that the government has implemented, and then
mm,
our product can fit there if we can get the sales manager to go talk to the new regulator, and then maybe that's how we can sell. You see, so sometimes salespeople shouldn't only focus on the money. The money is important, but focus on
mm.
growing the business so that
Right.
we can scale. Yeah.
100%. 100%. Speaking of which, our part of our the teams that follow this podcast are nonprofit founders and nonprofit builders.
Yeah.
How do you think sales, contributes to nonprofit organizational building, and
Yeah.
what are the differences that one might expect from completely commercial businesses?
So there are a number of approaches. The first one is, uh, let's be honest, funding and sponsors are drying up all over the
Mm,
show,
mm,
and as a result, it's very important to do a skills matrix for NGOs, and the skills matrix is what skills do we have in house, because you
mhm,
can't sell a skill. You can
mhm.
sell a skill. You can sell. For example, I know someone who works in an NGO, but they support other NGOs, so they
Right.
survive by training them.
Training.
Yeah, so training, but
Absolutely.
yeah, critically is as an NGO, the low hanging fruit is a collection of skills in house, and then what
Mm,
you do is you can actually build a course, and then start looking at the different partners that you, if you are supporting commercial businesses, you can say, hey, as you know, our funding is drying up. We're trying to find alternative ways to make money. Do you care to humor us? Because we have this particular skill. So the skills matrix will say, how do we sell soft services? How do we sell soft skills? That will keep us busy. And the good thing is, we are now what we call global, and global is we are no longer limited by our geometries. We are no longer, geographies. I beg your pardon. We are no longer limited to selling to South Africa only. You can sell to the rest
mm,
of the continent. You can
mm,
sell to the rest of the world. You
mm,
just need to build your sales model in such a
mm,
way that you understand where and who needs the services that you have. But the first low hanging fruit is a skills matrix where you sit down and survey the entire team and see who can do what and try and build. For example, I've seen some quasi-government entities are now saying, if we want training, we don't go to organizations. We can actually ask training from an individual, as long as that individual is experienced. They have these qualifications, they have this experience. We might actually pay them to come and train our teams,
mm,
because
mm,
they're actually trying to sort of flatten this thing where if you're an individual, you can't get government business. So I thought that was actually very, very, very cool. So
right.
NGOs, you have skills, you have services.
Mm,
Also,
mm,
what you do is look at what other NGOs are doing worldwide and how they
mm,
are surviving. And then it doesn't have to connect with an NGO in Europe, in the US, all over the world, and saying, hey, how are you guys surviving? And you'll be surprised that there's actually an ecosystem where you can fit in and actually trade exchanges where but you cannot isolate yourself and hope to succeed. You need to talk to like NGOs, and you will find that there is one NGO that is still sitting with cash reserves. They can pay you to do something for them, for example. Yeah, yeah,
Great ideas there. I like that. Thank you very
yeah.
much. You've been in sales for a long time, so
Yeah.
you've probably had, some tough deals that you've had to crack. Tell us about, the toughest deal you've ever won. What made it difficult, and what ultimately helped you to close it.
Yeah, so look, there's a number of those. I can talk about deals that slipped. So there's what we call deal slip, and deal slip
Right.
is a deal that almost closed, but then just one tick box that we missed, and then we lost that deal. And
Sure.
actually, it was one of the deals that actually got me fired. So I got fired because it was forecasted. And
Right.
everybody was excited about this deal. And back then, it was quite a lot of money. And
Sure.
this is where you learn to always have a checklist, especially when you have a big deal. Have a checklist of
Uh-huh.
of everything that you feel is needed to make sure you don't miss even a single important point. So I remember at the time, I was. So let me say this: sometimes when you are talking to someone and things are going well, everybody's excited, and the deal is definitely closing. And then what you didn't check was, what if the decision maker left the company, and then a new guy came and they blocked everything?
Oof.
So you have to always update the organogram. And that's one of the things I didn't do. Update the organogram, check that all decision makers are still on board. And you cannot continue a deal and you haven't spoken to all decision makers in 3 or 4 meetings. That is a very, very, very bad move. Always make sure, even if they said it will close, you also need to simulate in your checklist what are the chances that this thing can actually fall flat. And you'll find that, in my case, the final decision maker left. And then when the new guy came, he says, we put everything on hold. I first need to understand what's going on. And then
Yes.
everybody got frustrated, and then that's how we lost the deal. Yeah, so it's very important to understand, have a checklist, especially when the deal is long, when the deal has a lot of money. You need to have a checklist. Run the checklist with the customer and saying, what are the things that could potentially derail this deal on your side? Who are the people that must always be kept informed? Who are the people that must always be consulted within the
Right.
business? Yeah.
Right.
So don't sell based on your own excitement. Sell
Mm,
based on the customer's excitement as well.
mm,
Very, very
mm,
important. So that was the one of the worst deals that I had. And on the good part, I actually, one of the best deals I've had was about 25 million rands. And it was one of the African countries. They happen, there's a concept called KLT, and please write this down. It's very important.
mm.
KLT stands for people want to do business with someone they know, they
Like
love,
and trust.
not like can change. They
Yeah.
love, they love and they trust. So that's the KLT, so that's
Right.
not, yeah, it's not my original. There's actually an owner of this
Right.
particular
Right.
KLT. Yeah. So in this deal, I actually came in and build a rapport, and they actually liked me. They actually loved me a lot, because then what I did, I actually added value over and above just getting the deal. I understood what they were trying to do. I started teaching them some of the things they need to do in order for them to be successful, and then how my deal is going to help them. So I educated them. Not only were they successful, but they actually kept coming back. So one of the biggest deals that I ever closed, one deal was 25 million. And that was the best deal of my life and this was like 2007, I think. And to
Shoo.
date, yes, to date, I'm still in touch with those guys.
Wow.
Yes,
Wow.
yes.
So it was about getting to offer more value and creating rapport with these people until they
Let
knew
me
you,
update
they
that.
loved you, and they trusted you.
No, let me update that. I was not offering value. I was the value myself. Very important.
Hey! Oh, that's another mic drop.
No, I'm telling you, you can offer value or you are the value.
Right.
Remember the Ray model.
Sure.
So they recognized that I knew what I was talking about.
Right.
They
Right.
admired my knowledge of the market, and then
Right.
they respected the value that I brought to the team.
Mm,
And
mm,
then I
mm.
got embedded. So literally, I attended all their meetings. They
My
ran
God.
everything past me.
Hey,
Now,
hey. They
you
were
don't
eating
add
from
value.
your
You don't add value, you become the value.
right. Now that you are talking about becoming the value,
Yeah,
talk to me about what separates a salesperson who continuously tries but fails and there's no results, and
yeah,
one who becomes the value for the business. What are the differences
yeah,
between, the non-performer and the high-performing salesperson?
yeah. So customers can pick up your drive.
Right.
So your drive could be you are desperate to close because you're trying to buy a new car. You are desperate to
Mm,
close because you are trying to stay in a job. You are
mm,
desperate to close because you just trying to prove a point. So customers can pick up, they can sniff these things. Because let's say, for example, one of the reasons why salespeople fail is customers want to understand what your product does, and you are pushing them for a PO. You are pushing them to
mm,
close.
mm,
So, and then they can also see that you don't care about them as people. You want to
mm,
treat this thing as a transaction. And a
mm,
transaction is I offer you a service, you pay me, and then I'm out.
mm,
And then customers feel used. And every time you tell me personally, every time you were in situations where people were using you, you are an author yourself. If people are always picking your brain for free, but when you charge them, they don't pay, chances are
mm,
that relationship is going to end very soon.
mm,
So that's
mm.
exactly how we're treating our customers. On the other hand, the guy who's always closing is a guy who always created relationships before he needed them.
Oh,
So
mic drop.
you have to continuously create relationships before you're going to need them. Because think
Mm,
about this. Think about this. Would you call a stranger and ask them to spend 2 million on
no,
you? A complete stranger.
no.
People buy from people they know, they love, and they trust.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot call a meeting the first time and we're already talking figures. You need to allow people to get to know you first. They need to trust you. They need to know that by engaging you, they're not making a mistake. They need to know that you're not a fly
Mm-hmm.
by night. They need to know
Mm-hmm.
that you are not fraud. They need to know that you are a real deal. But remember,
Mm-hmm.
you don't determine that, they do. That's why you need to keep talking to them. Sometimes, one of the things that I did well in my days is, because of rapport, I find out that the guy I'm talking to, their daughter is getting married, and they keep saying, "Hey, we don't have an MC for this wedding." And I say, "No, don't worry. Where's the wedding? Invite me. I'll MC for free."
Wow.
I ask them for nothing. And then after that,
Mm.
I just say, and I make sure I kill it. And then after that, now they feel, wow, this guy was so generous. They start pushing.
Right.
They start pushing for you to get the deal, and it's not because
Right.
of they just feel this guy added value. This guy carried me when I was at my lowest. That's what relationships are
Mm,
about.
mm,
So
mm,
create relationships before you need them. How do you do that? You need to choose an industry. If you want to get
mm,
into banking, attend
mm.
banking conferences, attend banking seminars, and when you get there, you contribute. You network, you meet people, you talk to people. By the time you go sell to bankers, they already know you, and then
Right.
that's a plus one for you. But then, all I'm saying is, in the modern world, you cannot go that and expect that by the second meeting you are dropping an invoice for 2 million and people are going to buy it, unless
Mm,
you are selling something that was designed by God himself. Then maybe they can buy.
mm, mm,
Pretty
mm.
much. Yeah.
Yeah. Create relationships before you need them. I
Very important,
really.
especially today.
Mm,
The guy who's
mm,
selling now is the guy who created relationships 5 years, 10 years ago. Ask them.
mm,
The guy
mm,
who's making a killing now is a
mm,
guy who kept showing up. He kept adding value. He kept being the value. He kept
mm,
helping customers solve their problems before he needed to sell anything or she needed to sell
mm,
anything. And then
mm.
now is the guy or the girl who is bringing in the cheese.
Right. So how do I measure, that
Mm.
as my company is actually creating the relationships before it needs them? How do I get to, because it's almost invisible. You will
Yeah.
see it when it happens. How do I
Mm.
measure in my funnel that we are creating real relationships that will later on lead into good business? What are the indicators that we must be looking for to know that this is what's happening?
So uh, marketing marketing teams
Mm,
have budgets to do, show and tell. And show and tell is invite customers to just come and play around with your product. Invite
mm,
customers to come and pilot, give them a 3 months pilot. Show them what else you are working on. Show them,
mm,
let them know your capability. Don't sell them anything. Let them
mm,
see you in action. Let them see your production room. Let them,
mm,
because when you bring them to your playground, they'll play to your tune. But when they don't
mm,
know your playground, they'll play somewhere else. So bring them to your playground, allow them to play around, and then whatever music you play, they'll dance to it. And people love food. You'll be surprised. And then also it's the timing. You call a show and tell on a Friday at 12. People like that because they get to leave the office early, isn't it? And then after that, they
mm.
don't go back to the office, they go home. So
Right,
it's one of
right.
the things that you can do. But the challenge with a lot of companies today is customers don't know where they are. Customers don't know what they do. They know them by their product. So let's bring back the Ubuntu philosophy where we love people for being people and not love people for what they have or what they can do for us. So
Mm,
part of that, the first one is show and tell. And then the second one is webinars. Do a lot
mm,
of webinars, and these are not product training or product, it's training, it's really capability. And
mm,
capability speaks to in a specific industry, specific sector, specific customers. And then the third one is case studies and success stories. And case studies
mm,
and success stories sometimes invite people to come and show them where you've successfully implemented the product, because that will give them a good impression of what you can do. So capability, show and tell, webinars, sometimes just do social events where you just say,
mm,
hey, just come hang
mm,
out. We're drinking wine,
mm,
or we're
mm,
having
mm,
cheese platters. We're just
mm,
hanging around. And for example, in large events, for
mm.
example, depending on when this podcast is going to play. But when we recorded it, it was World Cup, and so lots of entrepreneurs and organizations should be hosting World
People.
Cup viewing. Yes, World Cup viewing.
Right,
Yeah, so then
right.
people can just invite a couple of customers and then let them put up a big screen there and invite people to your playground. It's the same as people saying big deals are closed in a golf course. So
Mm.
invite them to your playground and let them see where you stay. And then that way, people begin to trust you, because in case you run away with their money, they know where to find you, basically.
That is so true. That is
Yeah,
so true.
yeah,
Okay. So, my second last question.
sure.
If you were to get into an organization and you figure out that the sales team has missed targets for the last 6 months, right?
Yeah.
What
Mm.
would be your approach to turning things around?
Customer obsession.
Mm,
Customer obsession. So what I would do is, and this has happened to me, where, for example, our sales director, And then I come in and find that people are so discouraged. The meetings have turned into battlefields. And then what we do, the first thing is let's map customer journeys. The reason why we are not closing is because we don't understand our customers. And the reason why we are not closing, we don't understand where these customers are going. There's a reason why you get rejected. There's a reason why they are cold. There's a reason why they are not, giving us a moment of their time, because we're not speaking to anything that speaks to their future. We're not speaking to anything that speaks to the fires they need to switch off. We're not speaking to anything that speaks to, what's important to them, what's on their agenda, what's on their agenda at the moment, right? If the agenda is cost saving, how is our product saving them cost? If our agenda is scaling their teams, how are we helping them? For example, I'm good with HR, so if I get into an account and I realize that they're struggling to hire salespeople, I'll actually write their job descriptions for them. Right? And I say, no, don't worry. You don't have HR. Don't worry. I'll be your HR. Let me help you. Then I start doing job descriptions. We test them, test salary skills and all that. And then I actually help them with interviews. It has nothing to do with my job, but I have found an opportunity to contribute something positive. And when people feel that you want them to succeed, they will owe you a debt, and they will pay. They will come and say, you saved us when we were struggling. What can we do for you? And that's one question that every salesperson wants to hear, or every entrepreneur. What can we do for you? So to answer your question, it's very important to be obsessed with customers. What I would do is start with key accounts management. Let's pick our top 20 accounts and let's study them. Let's understand where they are, and then where possible, as the new sales director, I would like to set up a meeting and go see the CEO, just to kind of like say, hey, I'm here to introduce myself. And I know that you've been working with this organization. Where were the pain points? Where did we fail you? We need to be human. People buy from people. We must stop obsessing over systems and money and just be people. And you'll realize that people will start to respond better.
100%.
Yes.
Mr. Mabasa, thank you very much for this hour of absolute wisdom and fun. And I think that many people will come back to this and learn more about sales. And I also feel this may not be the last session that we have together. Once
Yes.
your book comes out, I would love for us to have another conversation and go through Rare and go through the 4 C's again and put scenarios in and figure out where each and everything is. Where do people find you?
Yeah, I'm on all social media. You can find me on Instagram. I've got 2 accounts there. It's Maromza, Maromza, and Romeo.Anyani. That's my other account. And then Romeo Motivational Speaker on Facebook. And I think it's Romeo.Anyani on TikTok as well. So if you Google my name, you will find me there. Trust me, I'm there.
Romeo Mabasa, Maromza. Thank you very
There
much.
you go. Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
It's been great having you.
Okay, man. Cheers.
Cheers.